We've all heard horror stories about the Tyranid psychic phase. But how do you really make the most of it, and what do you watch out for if you're playing against the Tyranids? 60% of the HQ options are psychers, and with loads of good units being psychers anyway, you certainly have access to powers without list building for it. Also consider that anything with Synapse also has the Shadow of the Warp ability, which is an 18-inch aura, -1 to cast, and an additional 1 mortal wound for perils. And you want Synapse units spread out for maximum coverage because of the Ignore Morale and Synaptic Link abilities. Before we look at combos, a quick look at the unit and faction abilities that are specifically for the psychic threat. Neurothrope is a key HQ, it has +1 to cast, and a Warp Siphon ability which is fantastic. Roll 3d6 and choose 2. Let's just consider this for a second. Firstly, it means the chance of perils is really low as you can discard a die. And then it takes the chance of getting a Warp Charge 7 power off up to 80%, and that essentially covers all the best powers. If you combine that with a +1 to cast, it's almost 90% chance. If the Neurothrope gives out its Warp Siphon ability to another unit and only uses its +1 to cast, it's still 72% chance of hitting a 7. For most normal psychers, it's 58% chance. Zone Thropes are particularly potent for smiting. You get +1 to cast for each model in the unit, and +1 mortal wound for each unit as well, up to a maximum of 3. The Maleceptor, out of everything it can do, has its Psychic Overlord ability. If it casts any power on a 7+, then it deals mortal wounds within 12, and on its top bracket, 3 mortal wounds. It casts 2 powers base. For the Relics, the Resonance Barb, the classic, is +1 to cast, so on a Neurothrope that makes it +2 to cast. It also lets it know an extra power. Particularly great Warlord trait is Synaptic Tendrils. It lets the bearer use one of its abilities twice, and for this video the use of Warp Siphon can be used twice. Rolling 3d6 discarding 1 is so powerful. There are 2 Synaptic imperatives specific to psychic powers. The Neurothrope can give out +1 to cast. It also has a +1 to deny and a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. And the Maleceptor allows a unit to perform psychic actions as well as cast powers. That's both things, and I'll come to this later how powerful this is. Just a public service announcement here to say that I'm currently running a channel giveaway, so if you want to get yourself a painted set of models, then check this video out after this. And with all the abilities to cast, what are you going to use most? You've got Cast List for Warp Charge 6, the Old Faithful, 5+ Feel No Pain. This is going to be used every turn. Onslaught for Warp Charge 6, Advance and Charge. I love this one, and while you can also move and fire weapons without penalty too, for me, it's all about Advance and Charge. Paroxysm for Warp Charge 7, no Overwatch, and make the target -1 to wound in melee. Neuroparasite for Warp Charge 7. You roll a d6 for each model in the unit, and if you beat the toughness, you deal a mortal wound, to a maximum of 6. And Psychic Scream for Warp Charge 5, simply d3 more wounds. Tyranids have a really rich and strong psychic discipline. Let's look at what you should be taking and some cool combos. Zone Thropes are an all to include really. A support unit that adds Synapse, always useful. Can be included without taking up a battlefield roll slot if you're also bringing Neurothrope. And they've got fantastic smite output, and this is not only the chance of casting it, but also of hitting super smite. So a min squad of 3 is only 150 points, they get +3 to cast, and they deal out 3 additional mortal wounds. The chance of hitting a super smite is normally only 8%, but for these guys it's 42%, and this goes up to 68% if they're targeted with the Warp Siphon ability from the Neurothrope. If you're casting a lot of smites, then these are best going later in the queue because of their higher chance to cast. With the 4+ Invuln, 4 wounds, they'll stick around as well. They also bring a great Synaptic Imperative, Warp Shielding, not psychic related but really strong. Give a unit of monsters a 4+ Invuln, or a non-monster unit a 5+ Invuln. With Neurothrope, at 100 points this is a great HQ to take. Already said about all its abilities, but having a 3+ Invuln, it'll be hard to kill, even when it's not got character protection. You'll probably always run it with a Resonance Barb Relic, which takes it to a +2 to cast. And the Warlord trait, giving out its 3d6 pick 2 ability, is brilliant. Now to the Maleceptor. This was ruined by people spamming them, and have become a target priority because of their abilities. A T8 monster with 15 wounds and a 4+ Invuln is pretty good, and some reasonable melee as well. Let's look at the combos for this one. The Psychic Overload ability allows it to deal 3 mortal wounds in addition if you do a psychic test of 7+. We've seen with Warp Siphon from the Neurothrope that you can get this up to an 80% chance of going off. The Neurothrope can also target it with its Synaptic Link ability for a +1 to cast as well. Now that's a 90% chance of getting that. The Leviathan Psychic Power Hive Nexus for Warp Charge 7 allows a unit to benefit from an additional Synaptic Link ability. So I suggest the Maleceptor also use its own Psychic Oversight ability. This means it can perform psychic actions and its normal powers. And the point of that is that you've now got 3 psychic tests, each of which can generate those mortal wounds. Now use the power of the Hive Mind for 1 CP to let it cast an additional power. So that's 4 powers, each with a 90% chance of getting 7+, making a chance of hitting 12 mortal wounds in addition. This actually works out about 66% chance of getting those 12. Now taking into account it'll do Smite, Psychic Scream, and maybe Neuroparasite, it'll be outputting at least 20 wounds per turn. With the target priority of the Maleceptor, you'll find that people often take 2 of them, and there are diminishing returns with 2, you don't get as many buffs that you can place on both. But still, the mortal wound output is absolutely scary. With the fact that most armies can't do anything about mortal wounds, let me know whether you'd like to play against these guys. Speak to you again soon. Bye.